Croeso y cyfarfod y Llawen y Cynir, welcome to full council. Please note that this meeting will be recorded for subsequent broadcast via the authority's internet. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the authority. The public seating areas will be in view of the camera, and by entering the chamber and using the public seating area, members of the public are consenting to be filmed and to the possible use of images and sound recordings as outlined above. We go on to the agenda. Item number 1, apologies for absence.
Councillor Chris Barry, Chair.
Councillor Schroeder again.
Councillor Gareth Richards, Mr Mayor.
Go on to item number 2, declarations of interest. Please note A and B. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare interest in agenda item 7, 2.18.2. I'm in possession of a parking permit. And agenda item 10, my wife is employed by the local authority. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, item 7, if we do them individually, item 2.5, I use the Council's waste services.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to agenda item number 12, Cyfarthfa Park Museum, and I sit on the board of the Leisure Trust. I do have dispensation, but...
Councillor Gibb.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item number 7 on recommendations 2.1. I know they're all lumped together, but under reference NS023, corporate property and estates, the garage and garden tenancies, I have a personal and prejudicial interest. However, I have taken advice, and it doesn't become prejudicial unless there is a debate about the decision being requested. So I will leave at that point if it does turn into a debate.
Councillor Jones.
Item 7, Mr Mayor, 218.2 in relation to a council permit. I have one and I'll be declaring an interest on that item.
Councillor Gareth Lewis.
Similarly, under agenda item 7, item 2.18.2, I pay for a parking permit.
Councillor Colwell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, agenda item 7, 2.5, I have trade waste.
I have a personal, I have a parking ticket, and I am the older person champion as well. Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I'd like to declare interest in agenda item number 10. My wife works for the local authority, and agenda item number 12, as I now work for the Leisure Trust as well.
Councillor Carter.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I don't want to be sounding a little bit pedantic here, but do we have to declare an interest if we use the car park? 'Cause I parked there today and spent £3.50. Are we sure?
In all seriousness, you have to be able to balance your duties against any interest that you may have, and your duties are to consider the business before the council. So where your interest is one that would be shared by effectively anybody else in the county borough, that will not count as a prejudicial interest.
Any other interest? Thank you much. We go into the open session. Agenda number 3. From 3A to 3I. Can I have somebody to move that, please?
I'll move that.
I second that.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I noticed the minutes go from 3H to 3I, but in the meantime, in between the 18th and 2nd, we had a joint scrutiny meeting, but they're not on yet.
They may just not be ready, Councillor Carter. You can only consider the ones that have been prepared and are before you this evening.
members, can we vote on that then, please? Thank you, members. That's carried. We'll go on to committee reports. Item number 4, with the Tyndall County Borough Council annual performance report, and this Councillor Andrew Barley to take us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The annual performance report, as members will know, is our statutory self-evaluation of our performance against our wellbeing objectives. The report covers a period between April 2018 and March 2019. Our overall opinion of our delivery within that period is adequate, where strengths outweigh weaknesses, but important aspects require improvement. The report has been through scrutiny on the 15th of October. I'd like to pay tribute to Kerry for writing the report, and more importantly to all the staff for achieving this measure against our wellbeing objectives in such austere times. I'll take us through recommendation 2.1, and it's the Council's annual performance report be approved. I move, Mr. Mayor.
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions, members? Councillor Gibbs.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to take you to members to page number 93. There's a case study in there that actually relates to the paint recycling system. Now, later on in this evening's agenda, we will be looking at voting on whether we keep this paint recycling system. So I'm wondering whether do we still need to keep this in this report? Because one, we're saying how well we're doing, but on the next, then a couple of items in, we may be taking it away from the public.
Hi, thank you, Councillor. I think it needs to stay in because it's a case study for that particular period in time, and some of the mitigation actions that we'll discuss later could also still achieve our outcomes potentially, which is for discussion. So I don't think we need to take the case study out of the report, but it is a relevant point to raise that the particular item is being looked at later in the agenda.
Any other questions, members? Any comments? Councillor Sears.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to echo Councillor Barry's comments and just to say thank the officers for the hard work that's gone into preparing this performance report. There is a huge number of case studies that make for really interesting reading. It obviously shows our work around delivering the well-being of future generations and obviously the steps to achieving well-being. So just to say it's a really excellent report, and you know, well done to all of the officers and any members that have contributed to putting it together.
Any other comments? Can we put it to the vote then, please? Thank you, members. That's carried. Go on to committee report number 5, procurement strategy 2019-2022, page 117. Over to Councillor Andrew Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report brings revisions to our procurement strategy following a 2017 Welsh Audit Office report on public procurement in Wales. The revisions focus on links to our focus on the future wellbeing in our community policy 2017 to 2022. As an authority, we spent upwards of £70 million in the local and wider economy, strengthening both through the effective application of our procurement processes, explained in more depth within the policy, which you'll find on page 121 of your packs. The recommendations, which you'll find on page 117 of your packs, is that the revisions to the procurement policy, procurement strategy, apologies, be approved. I move, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second that.
Any questions, members? Councillor Chaplin.
Yeah. On page 142, it mentions working within the local economy. What examples have you got of working with small and medium companies within the local economy?
Councillor. Sorry, I'm at the back. Our data suggests that we currently spend around 30% of our total annual spend locally, and around 70% of that is local SMEs.
Have you got any specific examples?
Lots of examples, obviously builders merchants, companies like that. There's lots. I can provide further information if you wanted that at any point. So if you wanted to request that, I can give you specific detail.
Any other questions, members? Any other comments? Can we put that to the vote then, please? Thank you, members. That's carried. We're going to agenda number 6, Carbon Management Plan, and it's Councillor David Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. The summary report is found from 1.1 to 1.15. I'm sure you all read it. I don't want to go through all the summary. This report presents authority's first carbon management plan for the approval. With it, Tidwell County Borough Council will aim to reduce the total CO2 emissions from its service provision activities, electric, gas, water, fleet and business travel by 50% by 2025, reducing its environmental impact and creating financial savings. Through subsequent effects of climate change, the public is becoming increasingly aware that positive and substantial measures need to be taken to mitigate the effects of human activity upon our planet. This carbon management strategy presents the Council firm commitment in tackling climate change at the local level. In order to meet our objectives, the series of actions and activities has been identified, which will enable the Council to deliver the degree of improvement required. With these individual programmes and actions in place, we stand every chance of achieving our reduction in targets by 2025. However, to achieve the target reductions, the most important thing is for the whole Council to embrace this effort, get involved, take pride in achieving these reductions. Delivering a 5-year carbon management strategy will enable authority to contribute to the national carbon reduction targets, complying with legislation, reduce associated costs and protect the natural environment. I therefore then go to the recommendation that the authority's first carbon management plan, which outlines Merthyr Tydfil's County Borough Council's strategy to reduce CO2 emissions by 50% by 2025 across the identified scope, be approved. I therefore move.
I second, Mr. Mayor. Any questions? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 148, under 1.9, and I quote, "It is hoped that the refit energy efficiency programme will begin in the next 6 to 12 months, which will assist in reducing costs and emissions within the authority." And then on page 150, under paragraph 7, it refers to the financial implications of that work. Could either the cabinet member or an officer tell me what is the likely financial gain in the next financial year, because it does say 6 to 12 months, so from possibly April onwards we will be gaining financially. Does anybody have an estimate of what the amount is?
Yes, so I suppose where we are in the refit energy efficiency programme, early next year the appointed contractor will start carrying out investment grade audits of our sites, and he'll produce an energy savings project list. In terms of the project timeline, we'd be looking hopefully to be on site between summer 2020 and then going into the winter 2020. So construction would probably last between 6 to 8 months. So I would have thought all projects would be installed by the end of 2020, all being well. So we'll be going into the the next financial year.
So, Mr. Mayor, do I take it from that answer that you don't really think that there's going to be any financial gain during the 12 months starting April next year?
I would have thought there will be financial gain for the next financial year, yes.
But, Mr. Mayor, you have no idea what that is likely to be.
So the high-level estimate suggests that we'll see savings of potentially between 100 to 130,000 pounds a year, annual savings. But until we do the investment grade surveys and actually sort of drill down into the likely savings, which we'll find out early next year, we're not going to have a good figure there.
I think part of the problem is, obviously, as Ian said, until we get those proposals, we won't be able to timeline it, and therefore we can't calculate. Everything is a notional estimate at this moment in time. Once we get a solid understanding of what can be implemented where, we'll be able to timeline it and then calculate some potential savings based on hard fact. And I think once we do that, we're more than happy to bring that back to council. But at this moment in time, it is, as Ian said, notional.
Any other questions? Any comments? Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank Ian for putting the report together, but more importantly for the hard work that he's put in across the local authority. I know he's continued the excellent work that his former colleague Mick Campbell started. It's always good to have targets, and I just hope for the sake of the local authority and climate that we can achieve these savings in the times that has been outlined. Yeah. So thank you, Ian.
Yeah, I'd also like to make my thanks. We were particularly impressed with the presentation we had, and I think the need for sustainability, as they say, it's doing the right thing, but also it's business, good business sense as well. So, you know, up and onward. And let's take that across a number of other areas as well. So thank you.
If there's no other comments, we'll go to the vote. Thank you. We're going to agenda item number 7. The Corporate Sustainability Programme, Budget Reduction Proposals, and it's Councillor Andrew Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Here we are again. With the indulgence of yourself, Mr. Mayor, the monitoring officer members, we'll take them individually again, if we can, if I can recommend each one of them, and then we'll do questions and comments on them from there. So the first, we go straight to the recommendations, is 2.1. The realignment of budgets, revisions to budget assumptions and implementation of operational budget matters as detailed in 2.1 in each of the directorate schedules appended in this report, with the exception, there is an amendment to this, with the exception of ED 015 in the Education Directorate be noted. I move, Mr. Mayor.
I second, Mr. Mayor, but if I could crave your indulgence just to make a few comments in seconding. I think it's important tonight to talk about the context of where we are. This is the third meeting in as many weeks. This is the first public meeting, so it's important those present understand what we're about tonight. An incredible amount of work has been done by officers. I don't say this lightly. Schedules have been provided, and there's been circulated to everybody the amount of paper this week that's around you, for everybody to see what goes on. It certainly hasn't been a quiet summer for most of us. It's been very busy. And I've worked closely with the officers and leaders of the other parties in going through a lot of this work. First, a big thank you, as I said, to the officers, but also to the other leaders and the other groups in looking at this work with us. This is an opportunity for us to debate tonight. That schedule has been provided by officers and has also been through scrutiny and cabinet. Almost £2 million in savings is within the schedule. We are in difficult times, and in order for us to survive as a local authority, we need to make difficult decisions tonight. Thank you. I so second.
Can we go into questions, please? Any comments? Can we vote on it, please? And that's been carried. Thank you very much. We'll go on to item 2.2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2.2, the freezing of the planning team leader post for 3 years be approved. I move, Mr. Mayor.
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? Any comments? Can we go to the vote then, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2.3, highways increase charges as follows. 2.3.1, the increase in charges for skips permits from £26 to £35 be approved. I move, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions?
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Jumped again. Sorry, jumped one. Good tweet that. Any questions? Any comments? We put to the vote then, please. Go to 2.32.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2.3.2, the increase in charges for scaffolding permits from £26 to £35 be approved. I move, Mr. Mayor.
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? Any comments? Can we put to the vote then, please? That's been carried, thank you. 2.33.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2.3.3, the increase in charges for building materials from £27 to £35 be approved. I move, Mr. Mayor.
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor Skinner.
It was just a question for clarity. So the building materials is to actually take them to the Civic, the charge to take them to the Civic, is that right? Right, okay, sorry.
Any other questions? Any comments? Could we put to the vote then, please? Thank you, that's been carried. 2.3.4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2.3.4, the increase in charges for drop curb applications from £80 to £110 be approved. I move, Mr. Mayor.
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Members, any questions? Councillor Amos.
Could I just ask, some of these drop curb applications, I believe, come from disabled people who wish to get their, whatever it is, motorised wheelchair or whatever. I don't know what the position is at the moment, but will these increased charges apply to them as well? I'm not sure if there is a reduced charge for them now, but could somebody clarify that for me, please?
I believe the charges are across the board. I'm not 100% certain, but I believe they are across the board, so there aren't any discounts applied.
Any other questions? No? Any comments? Can we have the vote then, please? That's been carried, sorry. Thank you. On to 2.4.
Mr Mayor, 2.4, the increase in bulky waste collection fees from £18 to £25 be approved. I move, Mr Mayor.
I second, Mr Mayor.
Members, any questions?
In coming up with this one, has any thought been given to the impact this will have on fly tipping? Because we've already got quite a significant problem with fly tipping. I just wondered if there has been any thought given, and why, having given it some thought, we've still come up with this idea.
Yeah, there was consideration given to that, and that is highlighted in the business case. It is recognised that that obviously is a risk. This charge was increased last year from £15 to £18, and the impact of that was taken into account in putting this proposal forward.
We've virtually doubled it in 2 years, then. Almost. Give or take £5. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Councillor Carter?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, it's a significant increase from £15 to £25 over the last 2 years. Has this been benchmarked against any other local authorities, Judith? Because I'm sure the Caerphilly County Borough Council is far cheaper than that.
Yeah, we have looked at the adjoining authorities, Rhondda and Taff, Blaenau Gwent and Caerphilly, and it's pitched somewhere in the middle of those. So we're not the highest, we're not the lowest.
Okay. Do you think that perhaps these should have been in the report for us to see, so we could have more justification?
They could have been, yeah. I don't have those precise figures in front of me, no. But as I said, we are in the middle somewhere. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest.
Councillor Skinner?
It was just picking up on something you said, Judith, about the increase last year and the concerns around increase in fly tipping were taken into consideration. In which way were they taken into consideration? Did I miss something in the business case about whether there was an increase as a result last year?
Yeah, that was what we looked at. Obviously, we've got figures for fly tipping instances of reporting, and there wasn't anything we could draw out that specifically that we thought related to that increase from £15 to £18 last year. I think those people who request, those services will continue to request those services. People who fly tip will probably continue to do so.
So there's no way of, because one of the things that came out last year when we had concerns was trying to do more work around a correlation between an increase in price and increased incidence of flight tipping. So if there was increased incidence of flight tipping, how are we determining if that's anything to do with the price increase?
We did look at that, but it's very difficult to specifically identify that it was as a result of that small increase. We looked at ways of doing it. We spoke to other authorities, but there wasn't anything that we could pinpoint that would specifically identify that it was as an increase of that.
Councillor Lewis?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Judith, the rates of fly tipping you actually have, they relate exclusively to fly tipping, reported fly tipping on council land. It's probably impossible to get rates of fly tipping on private land, for example.
Yeah, that's right.
Councillor Jones?
Hiya, can I just ask, if a resident needed to arrange for a bulky item to be collected by a private company, what would the cost be? Is £25 still, you know, quite a reasonable amount to pay?
Yeah, again, we've kind of looked at what the offer is, and we feel that comparably, then yeah, we are a reasonable cost. That, you know, some private contractors, well, most private contractors were a lot higher.
Any other questions? Any Cole's got it.
Sorry, Judith, I'm not sure if you'll know the answer to this, but when we're talking about the reports of fly tipping on council land, obviously you've got figures and things on that, but has there been an increase, if you know, of reports coming through of an increase on private land? And I ask that in the fact that if officers have been out and they can't do anything about it because it's been on private land, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the data that we collect only relates to council instances on council land.
So, for example, if I did an online report and it turned out that it'd be on private land, we don't keep that data.
It's not kept in a formal format like we do for the council land.
Any more questions? Councillor Torres?
Just one for Judith again, you know, just for clarity for everyone. If is a fly tipped incident on private land, we still investigate?
We do investigate, but we don't collect.
If there are more questions, we'll go on to comments. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As has been alluded to earlier on this evening, the fee was raised from £15 to £18 last year, and we are now asking residents to pay £25, which is a £7 increase on last year for their bulky waste to be collected. It's also been mentioned that there is a risk to fly tipping, or an increase in fly tipping, as a result of this proposal, if it is agreed by full council this evening.
Councillor Skinner.
It was just a comment to say that, again, I hate to harp on Judith, but last year we did talk about, in great detail, about monitoring it, because we were keen to make sure that if there was any way possible to correlate the increase with bulky waste. And one of the things that we did discuss was if there were more incidents of, which would be easy to monitor, it would be the type of fly tipping. So if there was an increase in particularly bulky waste, sofas, fridges, all of that sort of thing, then that would be the particular strand that we should have been focusing on to show whether there was an increase in those items. So that was just to sort of put that out there. But also, I just think anything that puts the potential of more incidents of fly tipping, when one of our main objectives as a town to grow and prosper is to become a tourist destination. For me, it's ludicrous. Anything that puts that at risk and makes our town look untidy or unpresentable, to me, is just not acceptable. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Mr. Mayor, I hear what Councillor Thomas has said, that these matters are investigated on private land. But I'm sure that most members are aware of the fact that a matter reported to us by a constituents is investigated, and there are powers under various acts afforded to council officers in certain departments. But my experience is that they don't always use those acts to the full extent. So if this goes through, I am sure we are going to have a great deal of problems of bulky waste being deposited amongst other waste on private land.
Councillor Whitman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think reference has been made to two substantial increases, 15 to 18, 18 to 25 in the last 2 years. What I would say in my observations is that, you know, I'm sure we would have all preferred to have seen a smaller incremental increase,
But what we found was things were at stalemate for a number of years and should have increased in line with the rate of inflation. And we find ourselves having to make decisions and increasing things a little bit larger than perhaps we would have wished to do so.
Councillor Amos.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to move on from what Councillor Skinner said. It is essential that we try our very best to keep the county borough looking presentable. But I also feel that this saving could be counterproductive, as if you're going to maintain that sort of standard, we're going to have to invest more money in sending out our council workers and our operatives to clean up any additional mess and fly tipping which will arise out of this proposal, which will put a lot of people off going through the proper channels to dispose of their waste.
Councillor Chris Davis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do agree with Councillor Clive Jones, because it's been my experience as a ward councillor, getting officers to use their powers in certain circumstances is a challenge. Maybe that's something we'll have to work towards. But I will go back to what the Chief Officer for Neighbourhood Services has said with regards to this increase, and echo Councillor Mitten's comments that those who will pay for the bulky waste will continue to use it. Those who choose to fly tip will continue to fly tip. It's a real challenge for us in terms of, I think, big thing we need to do is educate our communities about the damage this has on, you know, the landscape of the gorgeous county borough of Merthyr Tydfil that we've got.
If there are no other comments, can we put to the vote, please? That's been defeated. We go on to 2.5.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. 2.5, the increased fee for trade waste transfer notes from £20 to £40 be approved. I move, Mr Mayor.
I second, Mr Mayor.
Now that you left, any questions? Any comments? Councillor Roberts.
Sorry, thank you, Clive. Small businesses are already finding it difficult, and the proposal to double a fee just to have their trade transfer note could lead to them cancelling their contract. That's actually in the business case as a risk, with the local authority reducing in less income there. Obviously, if they do, then we'd like to see them go with a private company and not do away with it altogether. But that is a risk nevertheless. Thank you.
If no other comments, we'll put to the vote, please. Go for.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. 2.6, the closure of the council's household waste recycling centres on Boxing Day be approved. I move, Mr Mayor.
I second, Mr Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor Amos.
Could I just ask the cabinet member how much use is made of the facility on Boxing Day? Could you tell me?
I spoke to the waste people, and they said very little on Boxing Day. It's very little use. Also spoke to staff who said to me that they would welcome not after going to work on Boxing Day.
Any other questions? Any comments? Councillor Carter?
Mr Mayor, I'm a little bit disappointed in this, to be honest, because I don't know what I'm going to do on Boxing Day now.
If there aren't any other comments? Any other comments? Well, we'll expect. Sorry. We'll put it a vote down, thank you. That's been carried, thank you. Go on to 2.7.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 2.7, the non-acceptance of paint at the Council's household waste recycling centres be approved.
I second, Mr Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor Skinner?
Excuse me if I missed it in the business case again. We have had a lot to read. But it was just out of a curiosity, really. How does the Civic Centre currently dispose of the paint?
They send it to a specialist contractor who deals with removal of paint. No, it's not landfilled. No, it is recycled in some way.
Councillor Gibbs?
Thank you, Your Worship. I noticed from the business case with the proposed savings on here is 39,000. Can you give us a breakdown of how we're going to save that 39,000?
The 39,000 relates to what it's costing us to actually get rid of the paint. So I know you do reference to the case study in the earlier report. Unfortunately, the take-up of people taking the paint from the site hasn't been that great. I think that must have been a small representation. So the cost to the authority, as you'll be aware, numerous materials cost us to get rid of, and paint is costing us £39,000. So if we stop, obviously, accepting it, then we'll remove that cost.
I've got a follow-up question, Mr Mayor. Sorry. So again, in the business case, you mentioned that the residents can put the paint in their black bins. Is that going to have that's going to have an adverse effect on our recycling targets and our tonnage amount? So are we close to getting close to the fine threshold on that if we start putting this amount of weight in that to our residual waste?
We'll be advising the public on how to get rid of it alternatively. So water-based paints can be obviously washed out, and the tubs themselves can be recycled. Councillor Mitten has also advised us of other potential places where the public can get rid of paint. So we'll be signposting the public to other ways of disposing of it.
Councillor Skinner?
You might have already partly answered this, Judith. My question was around if at the moment we're sending it to an organisation to be recycled, as it says in our papers about it going in black bins, my question was, how are we as an authority managing the environmental impact of that? So you have partly answered it in terms of signposting and educating people on safer alternative, eco-friendly ways of disposing, but I wondered if there's an actual plan or strategy to do that rather than it just being, because it seems a little bit woolly at the moment. I wonder if that is going to be firmed up.
Yeah, the intention, if this proposal is approved, is to draw up a communication plan to the public, advising them of either how to dispose of it themselves alternatively, or other places that they can take it to. So we'll be doing a formal communication on that.
Councillor Clyde-Jones.
The fact that it's in the business case that these pots should be put in the black bins, and I suspect the vast majority are going to be put in the black bins. Does that mean that they're all then deposited in landfill?
If they go in the black bins from the residual waste, from the pickup from the curbside, then yes, they would, yeah.
Councillor Skinner.
Sorry, Judith, it was just a quick question on, you said it was going to be formally communicated. I wondered which forms of communication that you intend to use. Is it just going to be online, or is the households going to get a leaflet?
The intention is for it to be online to obviously save costs.
Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, obviously there's different types of paints, and the water-based paint, once it's tipped out and it's gone, can the paint pots, the plastic paint pots, go into our recycling?
Councillor Carlo.
Yeah, sorry, Judith, forgive me first. With regards to this, if there's, I've got two questions, sorry. If there's other ways we could have been disposing the paint before now, I'm not quite sure why we've been paying a company £39,000 to do it then, if we're coming up with this now. And secondly, wouldn't it be easier just to carry on leaving the public, bring the paint to the recycling centres, cancel the contract with this company, and have the operatives there to dispose of the paint appropriately, and then the paint pots into the recycling? Because my way of thinking would be people would just put the remains of the paint, rather than tipping it anywhere, and put it into the black bin, and that would be heavier rather than an empty pot.
In response to your first question, obviously in waste strategy we're always looking for different ways of increasing our recycling rates, and it was felt that this was an opportunity to do that, so it was trialled for that reason. But as I said, unfortunately the take up of people taking paint from the site hasn't been that great, which means that we've been left with this bill. Remind me your second question again.
The second question is, can't the public carry on continuing bringing the paint in the pots to the recycling plant? You cancel the contract with the firm which comes in to remove it, and just have the operatives there to filter the paint out there and put it down the drain or whatever they do with it, and then put the rest in the recycling thing.
We wouldn't have the facilities to do all of it, because obviously whilst some of it is water-based, a lot of the paints received are not water-based, and we haven't got the facilities to get rid of those.
But that would mean neither would I, either would I.
But what we said in the communication is that we'll be directing people to places they can go to get rid of those types of paints.
If there are no more questions, can we go into comments? Councillor Skinner.
For me, I think it's extremely important to do everything we can to try and minimise the environmental impact of this. The thought of gloss and all sorts of those paints being tipped down drains and, you know, into our waterways and everything, it fills me with dread, really. What I would like to see, for me personally, I don't feel just putting it online goes far enough. For me, I think it's important that every household receives a leaflet, so they're fully informed of what the correct disposal procedures are. I would feel much better if I knew that was a possibility.
Councillor Hughes.
Sorry, can I just respond to that? Perhaps we could use Contact magazine, because obviously that goes to every household in the county borough, so we could put something in that in the next edition.
Councillor Mitten.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in relation to what the officer was referring to, a local business I'm aware of, a local manufacturing business, has been piloting paint recycling with a housing association in Rhondda and Taff. It's been quite successful, and so what they're endeavouring to do is then offer that service wider, and maybe in the future there may be a partnership with the council to tell the members of the public where perhaps they could go, and that would be within the Merthyr Tydfil County Borough area. I can't share any more information on that because I don't have any more at the moment, but it is just something that wheels are in motion, if you like.
Are there any more comments? Can we put to the vote then, please? Thank you, that's been carried. Go on to 2.8.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 2.8 is the removal of the residual waste collection discount to schools be approved. I move, Mr Mayor.
I second, Mr Mayor.
Any questions? Any comments? Can we put to the vote then, please? That's been carried, thank you. Go to 2.9.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 2.9, the closure of the household waste recycling centre 1 day a week, a reduction of daily opening hours by 3 hours in the summer months be approved. I move, Mr Mayor.
I second, Mr Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor Jones.
Mr Mayor, it mentions about closing on 1 day a week. Is that likely to be the same day of the week, or is that going to alternate? And if it alternates, we're going to confuse the public even more.
It'll be the same day every week, but Aberfan will be 1 day and Dowlais will be a different day. So there will always be a household waste recycling centre open, but it'll be shut on alternative days.
Any more questions? Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to table an amendment for the HWRCs to be open at least until 7 p.m. So that the residents returning from work have the opportunity to use them. It's my opinion, and the Labour group shares the same opinion, that 6 p.m. is not acceptable. Thank you.
I second that.
Any questions on the amendment?
Can I just say, I don't think that actually affects the recommendation, because the particular hours set haven't been set yet. So we haven't said whether it's going to be 10 till 6 but we can take those comments on board.
Yeah, so if the amendment is proposed that would fix the hours, then that would be what you would be considering. So that amendment is what you're now considering. You can take into account what Judith has just said, but if you want to pass an amendment which fixes the situation so that the hours will be at least until 7 p.m, then that's what you're now voting on, and that's what you're asking questions and debating.
Councillor Salmon.
Thank you, Chair. Just ask Judith, what time does the HWRC open till in winter at the moment?
6 o'clock in the winter. Oh, no, sorry. 4:30 in the winter, yeah.
So if it's proposed instead of 4:30 it goes to 7 o'clock, is that dangerous for just in summer? Okay.
I think that's answered my question. There was confusion around, because it says current hours 9 till 8, and then there was talk of a 3-hour reduction, and I couldn't figure out which was which, but I think that's answered now. Thank you.
9 till 8 is the current summer hours.
Councillor Jones.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, but can I clarify what you said, Judith, about the hours? Because it did relate in the business case and mention 10 till 6.
Those were the suggested hours, but it hadn't been finalised.
So any more questions on the amendment? Any comments?
Shall I just be careful that everybody understands now that what they are voting on is the recommendation as it stands, so the closure of the household waste recycling centre 1 day a week and reduction of daily opening hours by 3 hours in the summer months be approved, but on the basis that the centres will remain open at least until 7 p.m. during the summer months. That's the proposal. So you are now going to vote on that. I think there's some discussion going on about that. This is the difficulty about proposing amendments when nobody's had the opportunity to take into account what impact they will have. I suspect that if the hours had not yet been fixed, then it may not make a difference, but I'll ask Judith to deal with that.
So the proposed savings have obviously been predicated on the closure 1 day a week plus the reduction of 3 hours. are you now proposing that the reduction is for 2 hours? Because obviously if we want it open until 7, then it wouldn't be able to open until 11.
Sorry, put my speaker on. No, from the point of view that we don't think it's fair that people returning from work have got to get home, fill their car, rush to the amenity site by 6 o'clock. There may be issues with fly tipping and everything. So it stays open till 7 o'clock, but it can open an hour later. So we're not proposing to change the savings or everything, just the time that it stays open during the summer months. If that means that it's open an hour later to accommodate it, so be it.
So that would be 11 o'clock. It wouldn't open until 11 o'clock in the morning.
Can I just, I don't know if I'm going to help or make things worse. I think the concern is at the moment, because of this suggestion, we don't know the impact and the operational issues that could come out of that. So I don't know whether it's prudent at this moment in time to defer things, for us to look at the operational consequences, given that, if should this proceed as it is.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy for the amendment to be withdrawn and the item deferred so we got more detail. I'm happy for that.
Councillor Mitton, do you still want to speak?
Technically, Councillor Barry proposed the motion and therefore would have to decide if he is deferring it.
We'll defer the item for clarification then.
We're going by 2.10.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 210 is withdrawn, Mr. Mayor. 211 is withdrawn, Mr. Mayor. 2.12 is deferred, Mr. Mayor. 2.13 is deferred, which takes us to 2.14. The removal of the allocation of the revenue support grant monies from subsidised transport and rationalisation of currently subsidised routes be approved. I move, Mr. Mayor.
Also, we start directly to this question, but could the Cabinet member indicate why these have been deferred? It would be useful to know.
He doesn't have to indicate why. If they're not being put forward to you, they are not being put forward to you for consideration. It may be worth a discussion outside.
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
Members, questions? Put to the vote then, please. That's been carried. Thank you very much. Well, a 2.15.
Thanks, Mayor. Consultation for the removal of the school bus service between Pentoyn, Quakers Yard and Edwardsville School following the assessment of safe walking route to school be approved and a report be brought back to Council with further recommendations. Mr. Mayor, I move.
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? Comments? Can we put the vote then, please? That's been carried, thank you. Going to 2.15.
2.16, Mr. Mayor. The reduction in support costs to the Merthyrville Town Centre Business Improvement District be approved. I move, Mr. Mayor.
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions, members? Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do the bids subsidise the parking on the weekends? Is it maybe a follow-up to that?
Yes, they do.
Be looking at something else later. Might there be reciprocal cuts to that subsidy? That's the word I was looking for, Caris. If the decision goes a particular way later on?
We don't think that's the case. The organisation is carrying quite a substantial reserve at this point in time, and obviously one of the focuses of their outputs is subsidising parking.
Councillor Salmon.
Thank you, Chair. The bid levy is currently £130,000, so a 15% reduction in that levy could have a big impact on the services provided by the Business Improvement District to businesses in the town centre. On page 396 it states discussions have commenced with the bid board and are currently ongoing, and they fully understand the need for the proposed change. My question is, have bid indicated that they are happy to fund this £20,000, as it will obviously affect their work, and have they indicated how the service they provide could be affected? We've already heard that parking could be affected, but what else is involved?
This isn't a reduction in the bid levy, as well as obviously collecting the levy on behalf of the bid. The local authority, since the organisation has been in being, has given an additional £30,000 allocation, which has gone towards the wage cost of the one member of staff. This means now that the bid will be using more of their money to actually employ themselves this time. The bid coordinator, the bid have not indicated that they are unhappy with the proposal.
And what services do bid provide?
Chris will help me out in the detail here. They provide a small grant scheme to retailers. They've got a big emphasis on supporting events with the local authority, and probably the biggest function is to actually sell and market Merthyr Tydfil. You've got the Big Heart of Merthyr, you've got the retail discount scheme that they run. So those are the type of activities, plus general support, advice and assistance for businesses.
But if the £20,000 is taken away, could it have an effect on the price of parking on a Saturday, where it's currently £1 all day?
We do not believe that there will be an increase in the Saturday parking charge.
Any other questions? Councillor Rogers.
I dropped my wife in town this morning. She went to a lunch with her two nieces. Her birthday Friday, by the way. I don't want a card, mate. And I said to myself, because if you look at Merthyr Tydfil now, Traeger Mills have a great effect on the footfall. Cyfarthfa Retail has a great effect in it. So there are some things when you're doing cutbacks, you can do that well pretty easy sometimes. But I think this is serious, this is, because people are now, the footfall in Merthyr Tydfil is outstanding. The amount of closed shops, open shop, none closed there practically. So I just telling my wife this morning by the Castle Hotel there, and I was looking at people. Now there's some things you can do. Now I think this is poor. How can you attract people to Merthyr Tydfil when you're cutting them off at the arms? Some things you've got to do, I suppose, at the end of the day, even though last week I voted against everything. But at the end of the day, please, you should rethink this, because you're cutting your nose off to spoil your face. People want to come to this county borough. They want to shop in Merthyr Tydfil. I hope all of us go around these different places. We do. I see a lot of. I don't see many faces. See Councillor Abby Jones regular. He's a good shopper. But I'm telling you now, if we don't, these things are serious. We must maintain people coming into this county borough. So I'm dead against it. And please have a rethink on this, because this is really serious.
Can I, yeah, can I... Okay. If I take that as a question, if I take that as a question about the economic vitality of the town, last year the vacancy rates in Merthyr Town Centre were over 14%. The latest vacancy rate is it's fallen to 8%, which is one of the lowest in South Wales.
So any more questions? If there's not, we go into comments, please. Councillor Thomas?
Yeah, week before last, we had a destination day at the Orchid Centre, where, you know, the amount of tourists now are coming to Merthyr is fantastic. You know, the extra £30 million in revenue annually that's coming to Merthyr, you know, is great. We had a meeting in St Tidworth Shopping Centre last Friday when the weather was horrific, but the actual shopping centre was packed. It was packed, right? So we are doing something right in Merthyr, you know. We've got to make some, you know, tough decisions. You know, we've got to save some money, and this is something that we've got to do. But it's not going to stop people coming to Merthyr. They come in, and they come in their droves.
Any other comments? If not, we'll go to the vote, please. Thank you, that's been carried. We're going to 117, but before that, I'll have to declare an interest because I am the older person champion. So I'll call upon. You just said that, didn't you? Okay. I just been re-advised I don't have to leave, thank you. I'm getting an old person. Yeah. We're going to 2.17 and Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 2.17, the discontinuation of the Help for Pensioners scheme offering council tax payment assistance to pensioners be approved. I move, Mr Mayor.
I second, Mr Mayor.
Questions, please? Councillor Roberts.
Keep doing it tonight. I'm not having a good evening at all. It's been well documented over previous council meetings that this is one that the Labour group fully supports for the reasons outlined at previous council meetings. I think Merthyr Tydfil are the only local authority to still pay this this pensioner scheme, something that I'm actually proud of. So we'll be voting against this tonight, Mr Mayor, and I'd like to ask for a recorded vote on this particular item, please.
Skinner.
Yeah, it was just a question. I wondered whether you could give me an example, whether it be cabinet or an officer, on an example of what that assistance looks like.
Any more questions? Any comments? Councillor Amos.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to echo Councillor Roberts' comments. This is something that we should be proud of. The council tax is likely to rise. We don't know by how much. Our pensioners are glad to receive this amount of money, I'm sure. And I certainly am opposed to this. There are savings that are a step too far, and I think this is one of them.
Councillor Andrew Barry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We're all aware of how contentious this is in terms of the pensioners. We understand we are the last council. And listening to comments tonight, I think our group concur with what's being said, so I would withdraw the recommendation.
Go on to 2.18.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 2.18, parking tariff options. There's three of these. 2.18.1, the increase in car parking tariffs from 70p to £1 for an hour, from £1.50 to £2 on the 3-hour tariff, and £3.50 to £4 on the all-day tariff. All of these relate to Monday to Friday. That is, no increases on Saturday and Sunday parking tariffs be approved. I move, Mr Mayor.
I second, Mr Mayor.
Any questions, Councillor Salmon?
Thank you, Chair. The potential savings for this recommendation are in the business cases, but have we taken into consideration that over the last 3 years, the average overpayment has been, I think, £9,000 a year? So people are putting in £1 when it costs 70 pence. So has that been taken off the amount that will be saved?
Yes.
Councillor Amos.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask, how do these revised charges compare with our neighbouring authorities?
It varies really. I think it's similar to other benchmarking exercises being carried out on other business cases. We're not the lowest, we're not the highest. It's quite difficult because the other local authorities offer different tariffs as well. Whereas they could be offering all-day pass and just a 1 hour, or it could be a 3 hour and a 4 hour. So it does vary in what's being offered as well. But in terms of what we are proposing here, it's roughly middle ground.
Any more questions, Councillor Skinner?
I just wondered if anything has been taken into consideration around the issues that our current charges cause. So, as an example, Park Ward neighbours town, and town wards have similar issues. Any street that is within walking distance of the town centre is currently chock-a-block with cars. Residents find it incredibly difficult to park anywhere near their homes. I know that since I've been elected, it's one of the biggest things that comes to me as a councillor is places like Albemarle's Terrace, all around Brecon Road, and I'm sure town ward councils have the same issues. Anything that increases the car parking charges is only going to impact on that problem. Has that been considered when this was done?
Yeah, the risk was identified, and it was brought up in our scrutiny meetings as well. So, I mean, we've got to balance that risk against the increases. The increases, looking at what we put forward here, I've tried to balance that out. So we're not going to say it's mitigated the risk completely. Obviously, there will be a risk of people deciding not to pay, whether it's 70 pence or £1. The increase of that 30 pence could mean that people will park in the surrounding area. However, the fact that our machines don't give change at the moment, people are more likely to have £1. These were all the discussions that we brought out in scrutiny. We have considered that risk, but there's little to mitigate when we have an increase in parking charges like that.
A follow-up question on that, Andrew. Has it ever been considered to... One of the things that I've often thought would be a good idea is to have a certain amount of allocated spaces within one of our town centre car parks for town centre workers, and they would be subsidised. Has that been taken into consideration to mitigate those risks?
That's already in place in a way, in the fact that people can buy permits who work in the town centre. So they can buy permits which would be cheaper than buying a day ticket or any other tariffs.
But it was my understanding with the permits, they're the same ones that are offered to us when we're elected, aren't they? But it was my understanding that that was only for us as councillors or council workers. I wasn't even aware that it was available for everybody. So is there more we can do to promote that?
Yeah, we can promote that further, but it is available to people, whoever they are.
I wonder whether we could add that into the contact magazine along with the paint issue.
Just alerted as well that the parking orders around the town centre, we'll re-look at those as part of the mitigation actions in answer to your first question.
Can you just expand on that, Andrew? Put the parking orders.
So, sorry, if I can help, Andrew. So part of the discussion we have had in relation to your first question about the impact on the surrounding streets, that what we will look to do is how we can look at further parking restrictions in those areas that favour residents rather than people parking where they should be parking in the bays in town. That's what we were going to look at.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I do have concerns regarding the students in the college. It's been brought to my attention by quite a lot of the students. They're really struggling as it is with paying for parking when they're in college on a daily basis, and it is making them go into other areas, following on from what Councillor Skinner said in regards to perhaps going into Ennisfarch, etc. So is there any way that in collaboration with doing the revised parking fees for workers, if there's any way we could look at helping our students out as well?
Yeah, I have met with the principal of the college and the student representative. We currently offer an academic permit, which is at a reduced rate, and the college were going to canvass their students on what they believe would be a fair tariff and potentially using one of the car parks over there. But as yet, they haven't come back to me.
Am I okay to kind of chase that up then? Thank you.
Mr. Thomas.
Two questions. Can we put some advertising up in our car park areas, advertising the permit systems?
Yes, yeah.
And the second question I've got is, when was the last time the car parking charges were set?
That was 5 years ago.
Greg, it was just when you follow up with
Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like a recorded vote on this one as well, please.
Can we just be clear, we'll deal with that at the end because there'll need to be 5 members requesting a recorded vote. So if we get to the point of that, we'll deal with that then.
Councillor Skinner.
Greg, yeah, it was just to say that if you do get an update from the college, and could you possibly include us all in that? Because I think we'd all like to know if that, if there is a reduction for the students. It would be good for us all to know.
Yeah, we bring an information report back.
Councillor Jones.
So what is the academic rate which is being looked at?
At the moment, the academic permits are £242 if you pay monthly, or a £230 if on a one-off payment. But when I had the meeting with the principal over there, there was a lot of debate over what is affordable and what's not affordable. So rather than coming up with a figure, it was, you have your student forums, and you were telling us that, you're going up to the surrounding areas park because you cannot afford this, and they had options that they said they believe students would pay, and if they had exclusive rates to the River Taff car park for controllable as in exclusive rates, and they were going to do a suite of options and come back to see whether the council would accept any of those.
just a point of clarity as well. We're not putting the academic permits or residence permits up. It's to do with the tariffs.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question regarding the academic permits. Have we got a number of the actual uptake of students who have taken that out at the moment, currently?
Yeah, it's very low. It's the last count that I took 3 months ago, there were 76 uptake.
Any comments? Councillor Skinner?
It was just to say really that I do support this in principle, because I understand the absolute need to maximise any opportunities for income, but I will vote for it, but just on the proviso that we do address the fact that there is a major issue of people parking. The reason why academic passes are so low is because they're all around the surrounding area, particularly around the bungalows, the students, particularly around the elderly bungalows. And I've had incidents where ambulances can't get through to get to people, to get to sick people. You've got elderly people having their driveways blocked by students. So it is a real, genuine problem. So I will vote for it, but on the proviso that I've had reassurances today that there will be a number of things happening to mitigate the associated risks with the parking. Thank you.
Councillor Salmon?
Thank you, Chair. It's just a short one. In these times of austerity, we should be trying to protect our small businesses, and I feel this recommendation could have an adverse effect on footfall within the town centre.
Well, I will be voting against this because this is the second one, 2.16. We want to, well, disencourage people coming to Merthyr Tydfil. Now the parking is going to go up again, so we want people to come into this area, not debar them, because I know what, I've been told there's a few places actually, I think Cumbrahan has mentioned to me, that you don't pay for any parking at all. You take a winner and that's it. You drive in, encourage people to come in there. So I'm deadly against this. It's another nail in the coffin now of stopping people coming to Merthyr Tydfil. We should be up and about and saying, you must come to Merthyr Tydfil. That's the most important thing. So this is another one with 2.16, which is going against involving people and asking people to come to Merthyr Tydfil. Encourage them. That's not going to encourage.
Councillor Evans?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A few moments ago, the officer, Alan over there, mentioned the increases in footfall in the centre, and now the town centre was becoming quite a vibrant community. I'd certainly like to echo the words of my two ward colleagues, Councillor Salmon and Councillor Rogers, that I think this is a step backwards, that we should be doing everything to encourage people to come in, and making them pay more to park their cars when they do, I think is a very retrograde step.
Councillor Mitten?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I listened to the debate tonight, but at the end of the day, we have to be realistic. I appreciate, and I think we've already talked about the footfall and encouraging people to come here, and I think we will still encourage people to come here, whether it's 10 pence, 20 pence or 50 pence in some respects. But just making the point again, this independent administration has listened to the officers at WAO. We've looked at the audit reports. We've considered that we need to increase income where it is viable, it is realistic, and there isn't a massive impact on the people of Merthyr Tydfil. And had this, again, been a smaller incremental increase over the last 5 years, then we wouldn't find ourselves in this position again. So yet again, we have to make these unpalatable decisions. This one, I think, isn't as unpalatable as some others might, and I think we will still encourage people to come here, because this town, this borough, is far more pleasant to travel to than sadly some of our others in other local authorities. So we will still encourage people to come here.
Councillor Colbert?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I really resent paying for parking. It's one of my big bugbears. But we do need to make savings or increase incomes. And Councillor Mitten has made a lot of the points that I was about to make. We haven't increased for 5 years. We've all agreed that we need to make unpopular decisions, and unfortunately this is one that I have to agree with. I wish there was a way around it perhaps, but I don't think, not having increased parking for 5 years, comparing how much I pay for parking elsewhere, I don't think this is unreasonable. So with a degree of reluctance, I will be supporting it.
Councillor Tavy.
Oh, I was going to say, although the parking's free in Cumbrae, it's a different situation. The whole of the town centre, as far as I'm aware, is owned by a private company, and the car parks are a private company as well. And so it's just like Asda and Merthyr giving free parking. That's how Cumbrae operates. It's not run by the council.
Councillor Lewis.
Just picking up on the point that the independent group have had the opportunity to make incremental rise over the last 2 years. We're now moving into the 3rd year of an independent-led administration.
Councillor Roberts.
Was that very point with
Leader.
I just want to approach this from another perspective. Councillor Skinner said about the issues with town centre and parking. Yeah, it's a constant bane for us in relation to town centre, and public approach me regularly about it in the town. We're looking at it from a number of aspects. First of all, there's no indications that less people are coming to town. In fact, more people are coming to town. The statistical data, when we did the work, shows that most people want to park in Tesco's. That's where it's all drawn to, because it's free. Absolutely. But also, we have loads of other people who will avoid paying any fee whatsoever and actually burden a load of places outside. They are fully aware and able to pay, because we know the individuals, we know what jobs they do. Some people are leaving their cars on the side streets in the town and going to their job in Cardiff for the day and using a train. The situation, the data, we've got it there. So we're looking at approaching it, creating some elements of control there. My colleague, Councillor Barry, has done a considerable amount of work on it, but creating zones in relation to certain parking areas where vans are prohibited, possibly because there's so many people taking on their works van as well. So the numbers way of trying to make space. The simple answer to the question is that we have insufficient parking for the amount of cars that are growing in our area. We have insufficient areas in our roadway to get the cars through. We're in the midst of that dilemma. I reiterate the point that many of these choices today will be unpalatable, but the point of the matter, and I refer to it, is that we need to be in business next year to take things forward. So from my perspective, no answer to any question is going to hit all the boxes. There's going to be some elements of risk. But from my perspective, the risk is worth taking in this one, and I'm sure you can develop a better process as we go forward.
Any other comments?
So there's been a request for a recorded vote. There need to be 5 members who request that. So can I have a show of hands of who is requesting that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there will now be a recorded vote. The motion is that the increase in car parking tariffs from 70p to £1 for 1 hour, from £1.50 to £2 on the 3-hour tariff, from £3.50 to £4 on the all-day tariff. All of these relate to Monday to Friday, i.e. no increases on Saturday or Sunday parking tariffs, be approved. Councillor Julian Amos, are you for the motion or against the motion? Councillor Howard Barrett.
For.
Councillor Andrew Barry. Councillor Chris Barry is absent. Councillor Brent Carter. Yes. Councillor David Chaplin. Councillor Malcolm Colbran. Councillor Chris Davis. Councillor Jeremy Davis. Councillor Lee Davis. Councillor Ernie Goldsworthy. Councillor Kevin Gibbs. Councillor David Hughes. Councillor David Isaac. Councillor Clive Jones. Councillor David Jones. Councillor Harvey Jones. Councillor Michelle Jones. Councillor Gareth Lewis. Councillor Lisa Mitten. Councillor Kevin O'Neill. Councillor Darren Roberts. Councillor Tony Rogers. Councillor Declan Salmon. Councillor Tanya Skinner. Councillor Bill Smith. Councillor Geraint Thomas. Councillor Ian Thomas. Councillor John Thomas. Councillor Scott Thomas. Councillor Clive Tuffy. So there are 11 in favour. And 19 against, so the motion falls.
We'll go on to 2.18.2.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 2.18.2, the annual increase of £10 to annual permits. Oh. Hmm.
I'm grateful for that. I realise that this is a little bit unusual, but I think we would be in the position where we'd never be able to resolve this matter. So if we just, sorry, Councillor Barry, if you can go ahead.
Thank you, Mr Officer. So if we go back to 2.18.2, the annual increase of £10 to annual permits, 0 increases to residents or academic permits be approved. I move, Mr Mayor.
I second, Mr Mayor.
Questions, Councillor Skinner?
Are we really saying that after everything we just said about mitigating the risk and trying to get more people to buy permits, that we're now proposing to add an extra £10 on top?
Yes.
Any other questions? Any comments? Councillor Skinner?
I just think it's crazy to do it, you know. We just spent 10 minutes debating the issue and saying about all the issues we've got and how we want to mitigate the risks and everything else, and now we're proposing making it even less accessible to people. So I can't possibly get behind this one, I'm afraid.
No. Can we put the vote down, please? That's been defeated. We'll go on to 2.18.3.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 2.18.3, the undertaking.
It's not relevant.
All right. Where are we? 2.13. 2.19 is withdrawn. 2.20 is withdrawn. 2.21 is withdrawn. 2.22, youth service options, starting with 2.22.1. The utilisation of new grant monies to finance the youth and community officer post be noted.
Mr Mayor, I second that.
Any questions? Any comments? Can we put it to vote, please? That's been carried. Thank you. We're going to 2.22.2.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 2.22.2, the removal of the vacant senior youth worker post within the North Cluster be approved. I move, Mr Mayor.
I second that, Mr Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor Rogers?
I'm working the other way tonight now. The question is really, is that what effect now is this going to have on the youth service we got now within the county borough? I know it's the North Cluster, whatever, you know, but what effect is this going to have on the youth service coming down from the bottom to the top, whatever? Is this going to be detrimental now to the youth service? Or is it, you know, I know it's a vacant post, but would that have been filled or not, or is it just, why hasn't it been filled?
Thanks, Councillor Rogers. There will be no detrimental impact in relation to the service. It is something that, you know, I'm very passionate about, looking through the business cases, etc. The service will still be maintained. The officers have done an immense amount of work in ensuring that the impact is very, very little, if any.
Any other questions? Councillor Amos?
Yes, could I just ask this again? This is along the lines of what I was asking last week. Sorry, at the last meeting. The removal of vacant senior youth worker, member of staff. How will that removal be affected? Is the chap the post not being filled, or is it the post isn't being filled?
And then you can take it out of the budget.
Councillor Skinner?
It was just a quick question. Lisa might be able to answer it. How many youth workers would be left down the north end, Lisa, after this?
I won't be able to give you an exact figure because it was a vacant post. What the officers did, it is within the business case, but because the officers looked at the post, we just felt that we didn't need to have that additional post anymore. It wouldn't have any impact, so hence the vacant post was removed because there was no additionality needed. But exact figures I'd have to come back to you, Tan, because Chris isn't here, in fairness, but I'm sure he could provide you with that. But as I said, there would be no impact on service delivery to those young people.
Any more questions? Any comments? Councillor Chris Davis?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to say Councillor Rogers was right to raise it. I know he's as passionate as I am about youth work services, but I must commend Chris and his team. If councillors look at the business case, there are a number of options outlined there, and this is the one that has the least impact on service delivery and the least impact on our children and young people. You know, we don't want to see an increase in antisocial behaviour and youth annoyance, and this, obviously 2.221 and 2.22, if agreed by members, will have that least impact on service delivery. The other options could lead to, in the business case, could lead to a reduction in service, and that's not what any of us want for our children and young people.
Any other comments? If not, we'll put that's been carried. We're going to 2.22.3.
Mr Mayor, 2.22.3, the reduction in the participation budget not impacting upon frontline service delivery be approved. I move, Mr Mayor.
I second.
Any questions? Any comments? Councillor Davis?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, obviously, you know, a really difficult one. You know, this council should be very proud of what we do with participation, engagement of children and young people. You know, this year celebrated 10 years of Youth Mayor, and I'm really pleased that this reduction is not going to have any impact on frontline service delivery, because the work we do engaging our children and young people is really, really important and something that we should be very proud of. So again, commend the officers on bringing this forward as a reduction with no impact on service delivery.
Any more comments? Can we put the vote down, please? .23 has been carried. 2.2.3, sorry.
Yeah, I'm a governor of Greenfield School. Do I need to declare an interest in that?
Are you a local authority governor? Then you have a standing dispensation.
Yeah, I second that.
What I'm saying.
Councillor Andrew Barry.
You second what? Two- 2.23, the renegotiation of the service level agreement with Greenfield School at Cwmtaf Morgannwg University Health Board in respect of the school nurse be approved. I move, Mr Mayor.
My hand up, I got my hand up. I second that.
Any questions? Councillor Amos.
It's got shades of Brexit, really. If these renegotiations don't produce a result really that we want, I presume it's you're working towards funding going to the health board rather than by the local authority. What if they don't go in our favour? What's going to happen then? Could you just tell me?
We have more or less secured the changes to the service level agreement. Councillor Chris Davis will know that this came up last year. It came up as one of the things we needed to look at. And since Morgannwg, since Bridgend have actually come along, we've been able to negotiate some of the changes with Cwmtaf Morgannwg, not just with this, in with continuing healthcare and things like that. So the change to the health board has helped us to enable to undertake more work with them to make the savings.
So you're reasonably confident that it will go through? Boris Johnson said that, right? You know?
Councillor Colburn.
Yeah, thank you. So if it doesn't go through for any reason, is there a financial implication for Greenfield School?
No, there isn't. There's mitigation against what we are working with the health board at the moment.
Any more questions? Any comments? Councillor Chris Davis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to say, based on what Sue had just said, well done to her and her team in terms of, obviously on the back of Bridgend joining the reorganised health board to secure, obviously, some additional funds for the school nurse, because their role is integral to supporting the children and young people with quite complex needs at Greenfield School. And to commend your team and the staff at Greenfield for the things they do. They go above and beyond educational tasks, and as a former chair of governors there, undertaking primary health roles to allow children in our county borough to be able to go to school. So, my offer as at Cabinet, if there's anything I can do to help and support, I will. But well done on and good luck on the remainder of your negotiations.
Any more comments? Can we put the vote, please? That's carried. We're going to 2.24. Was that right?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A slight alteration to the recommendation in that 2.24, the change to the nature of the youth orchestra from a council service to one, and it should read now, of a constituted group be approved. Mr Mayor, I move.
I second.
Any questions? Councillor Skinner.
This came up in joint audit and scrutiny, and one of my concerns at the time was the support and capacity of the constituted group and their ability to get grant funding. So my question is, what are we going to do as a council to make sure that they've got the skills, capacity and support in order to get any external funding? And can I just ask that I don't get told the VAMP will do it? I'm asking specifically what we're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, if I can perhaps answer this one. I discussed this with our Director of Education, and our team will give direct support. And we've had previous history of dealing with some of the key people in that organisation.
Have they if you're familiar with the organisation, and Alan, so are they are the parents of the group Have they got the skills and the capacity to be able to do it, or are they completely, you know, sort of parents who are, yeah. Well, what are the group like?
I'll come in on that one. The reason we went from, and it was after discussion and joint scrutiny, that we went from charitable status to constituted group, because it is like a parent-teachers association. They can be a constituted group, so it's an easier process to do the applications for grants. The group themselves are a very committed group. They work very hard at the moment, and by actually making it a constituted group as opposed to charitable status, it allows them the time that they are there during the youth orchestra time to be able to start looking and gathering information. I'm confident that they will be able to manage this process with our support and with the support of Alan's team to be able to access grants, which is what would be needed, and also look for sponsorship from other organisations. That's what they're already considering, how we can actually look at sponsorship, which will be easier if they're through a constituted group than if they'd gone down the charitable status route.
Okay, thank you both.
Councillor Amos.
Mr Mayor, actually Councillor Skinner has asked quite a lot of what I was going to ask. But could I just ask, as a group rather than a charity, will they lose out on any grants that a charity could get that a group couldn't? Which is basically, so it's like a PTA. And are there any? I know a charity, for example, I'm showing my ignorance now, but a charity can claim tax breaks. But how does that compare with a group? Will they be financially worse off not being a charity? And of course, obviously, this distinction between, are there some grants they lose out on because they're not a charity?
There's actually less. They're less constricted if they're a constituted group than if they're a charity group, because they'd have to have a trustee board and things like that if they were a charitable group. So I don't know about tax. I'd have to come back to you for that.
Councillor Amos, they wouldn't. The tax wouldn't apply. You only get tax breaks as a charity if you're really large charities. Most small charities don't even bother with the tax benefit, so they wouldn't apply to a constituted group, in my experience.
Any other questions? Any comments? Can we put the vote in, please? That's complete and carried. I've had a proposal of a short break. Can we have a 10-minute break then? Back at 25 past. Thank you. We're going to item 8, was information report. So, yep. So we move on to Councillor 9. So can somebody move section 100?
Can I move section 100, please, Mr Mayor?
I'll second it.
Can we vote on that, please? That's been carried. Thank you, members. We're going to 13 to deal with any other urgent business or correspondence. I have none. And number 14, please, communication from His Worship the Mayor. I have none. Thank you for a long night. Thank you very much. Thank you.